Well, good morning, y'all, and welcome back to the Piney Woods Homestead. I'm Matthew.
And Lisa.
And today we are going to bring you along into the kitchen. Lisa is going to be making her homemade bread, and several of you have said you would like to see that, so she's going to do that. And at the end of the video, since she's going to show you how to make something, I'm going to show you how I make pickled eggs. Nothing fancy, just something I like to do with all the excess eggs. They're a mighty fine snack. And one other thing, guys, before we get into it, just kind of wanted to explain to you why you hadn't seen me in the videos lately, and why I had a beard and now I don't have a beard, and I had hair and now I don't have hair. I got hit with the big C. Is that what we can call it? I got hit with the big C back in November, and it just wreaked havoc on my body. Did a little spa time in a, what would you call that? A ward. Yeah. In a ward. And guys, this has kind of beat me back, and but the only thing I can do is hang out in the house, sucking down on some oxygen, but I'm getting better. It's just taking a while. So that's why you haven't seen me outside. Just kind of wanted to let you know I ain't gone. I'm still here, and I want to get back into it before Lisa totally takes over the entire channel. But I appreciate what she's been doing. She's doing a great job coming out of her shell, kind of doing this thing. So I like it. You're doing good. Guys, without further ado, let's get on into it. Show you how she makes bread and how I eat it.
Alright, y'all. First thing we're going to do is take, this is 1 2/3 cup of hot water. I'm going to put about half of it in the bowl. Maybe a little more. 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And a teaspoon of sugar. And just stir it together a little bit. Just to get the yeast somewhat dissolved. And then you're going to let this sit for about 10 minutes for the yeast to bloom. So we'll come back in about 10 minutes and check it. And one way you can make sure that your yeast is working is during this bloom time, you'll see the bubbles starting to form. So just keep an eye out on that. And if it doesn't start within the first minute of you doing it, then your yeast is either bad or your water wasn't warm enough. Alright, y'all, I should add one more thing. With yeast, as I said, if it doesn't start blooming right away, your yeast is either bad or your water's not warm enough. But also, if your water is too warm or too hot, you can kill the yeast that way. So there's just a fine line with that temperature. So make sure that you do that part right. And this is after 5 minutes, and we're going to give it about another 5. Ready? 1, 2. Alright, y'all, and if you like this type of videos, if you could, go ahead and give us a thumbs up, and I'll try to keep doing some more of them. Now, our yeast is done blooming, so I've got to add the rest of the water. And I normally add a rounded tablespoon of honey. And you can replace the honey with sugar if you don't want that. And then a teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to give that a quick stir. And now that I've got the honey and the salt stirred in, I'm going to add just a little over a tablespoon of melted butter. It doesn't have to be melted, it can just be softened, but I like the way it does with it melted and cooled. And then I'm going to just give that a quick stir. Now the rest is, I've got 4 cups of bread flour here. The recipe is for 4 1/2. I've got the other half right here because you don't want to add it all at one time. I'm just going to add not quite the 4 cups, but pretty close to it. And I just go along the sides. And after a few minutes, you'll start seeing it form into a dough. And what you want is it to start pulling away from the sides. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of that 4 cups. Now that it's pulling away from the side, I just slowly start adding that last half a cup, about a tablespoon at a time. You don't want it too firm, and I've never had it take the full half a cup. But you can see it's starting to pull away from the sides now. And that's getting about the consistency that I like. So that was about about 4 1/4 cups of flour in this time. And you don't want it like super firm. You want it just past firm, but with a little bit of stick left in it. And then I just kind of do a little bit with my hands right here. Once your dough is good, I've got a bowl right here with just a little bit of olive oil drizzled in it. And I'm just going to take this and I kind of fold it over. And then coat it really good and shape it. And then we'll cover this with a tea towel. You want to let it rise for 1 hour. If you have a bread proof setting on your stove, that works great. That's what we used. I just pop it in the oven and let it sit for that. But just as long as it stays good and warm so that it will have a proper rise.
Alright, let me show you how I make pickled eggs. It's really simple. We use fresh eggs. And if you'll notice on these fresh eggs, a lot of them are off of new hens. And some of them are pretty small. But that's okay, we're going to pack them in here. And if you've ever tried to peel a hard-boiled fresh egg, it's almost a nightmare. But it's not if you'll use something like this. This is a Power Pressure XL, something to that effect. I believe you can see it up on the front. My mother-in-law gave this thing to us. And I don't really like to cook in it because I prefer home cooking on the cast iron on top of the gas stove. But I love doing eggs in it because you can peel them so easy. And I can probably fit about 14 eggs, which is what I have in there. To do these pickled eggs, you're going to need a few things. I like to use a wide mouth jar. It's just easier to get the eggs packed in there and to get them out once they're done. You're going to need a medium-sized onion. I like a sweet onion. You're going to need some red chili flakes, red pepper flakes, some pickling spice, doesn't matter what brand, pure old cane sugar. We use kosher salt around here, so we'll be using that. You're also going to need white distilled vinegar. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Okay, I got 14 eggs up in here, and they're small eggs. A couple medium-sized ones. Once you've done that on top of this rack, you need to make sure you've got about 1.5 inches of water in the bottom of this pot before you kick this thing on, or you're not going to have anything to make steam. Alright, it's locked in place. Plug it into the wall, and I'll show you the next step. If you have one of these Power Pressure Cooker XLs, this is what I do. I hit the rice risotto button, and then I hit my time adjustment button to 8 minutes. Leave it alone. It's going to take several minutes for this thing to come up to temp, and when it does, it'll start to count down from 8 minutes. Once it's done that, all you got to do is release the steam valve up here, and it'll let all that steam out. You can take your eggs out, put them in cold water, and get to peeling. Alright, in a clean mixing bowl, start with your white vinegar. I don't measure anything, I just kind of eyeball. A lot of your room is going to be taken up from your eggs anyways. This is probably going to be more brine than we actually need. I like to throw a pinch of salt. Don't take a ton of salt, but it works good with the acidity. When it comes to sugar, I'm going to eyeball. I want these things to be a little bit sweet and have a little bit of a kick. And my lid ain't wanting to work here. If I had to guess, I would say you got 1/4 cup there of white sugar. Move on to the chili flake. I want them spicy. Sweet and spicy. Now that's a lot of red pepper. And you're going to taste that heat on the back end of these eggs. Pickling spice. And everything nice. About the same amount. Once you have it all in the bowl, give it a good whisk. A lot of people will tell you put it on the stove top to dissolve the salt and the sugar. But honestly, if you will just whisk, 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 it's going to incorporate itself. And guys, let me clarify something in case you're confused a little bit on something here. This is not a product that I'm going to can, pressure can, or water bath. This is going to go straight into the refrigerator. And I have read that you can keep these in the fridge for several months. You're not going to keep it that long. You're going to eat that jar probably within a couple of weeks, month at the latest. At least I will. One other ingredient I forgot to mention is soy sauce. And I run me close to a tablespoon in there. That's going to add a little different type of salt and that already fermented flavor, as well as impregnate those eggs a bit, and your eggs going to darken up ever so slightly. Kind of a mahogany look when they're done. After just a few minutes, that steam is going to completely die down. You'll be able to take this lid off. Open it away from you so that steam doesn't hurt you. Now with this heat-proof glove, we're going to get these eggs out and drop them in to some cold water over here, just to make it easier to work with these things. Alright, we'll get cracking on some eggs and getting them peeled. And I'll show you just how easy it is to peel a fresh egg after using that steamer. Because most of the time you will rip them things up. Not saying you might not rip one or two here and there doing it this way, but it's a whole lot easier. I remember when I was a kid eating Mama's deviled eggs and helping her peel eggs in the kitchen, and she could get her thumb up under that shell and work that thing off in about 2 licks, whereas it takes me just a little bit longer. Alright, right there you have a nice, clean, pretty egg. I'll go ahead and get the rest of these done and we'll move on. Alright, after all the eggs are peeled, we did that off camera, and I'm ashamed to say that Lisa outpeeled me about 3-1. I messed one up and had to eat it. It was terrible. Actually, it was really good. Take your solution that you've made up and go ahead and pour that in there just until you cover the eggs. And you'll have a little bit left over. That's alright. Now what I'm going to do is take that onion and put it right on top. Just shove it down in there. I think some jalapenos will be good too. But I got so much solution in here now that I think we'll just stick with the onion. That's good enough. Alright, after you get that done, go ahead and put your lid and band on it. Give it a little bit of a shake and stick it straight in the back of the fridge. Alright, here's what it ends up looking like. The eggs, you can see the darkness from that soy. That's going to turn these eggs kind of a mahogany. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to pull out the ones that I have in the fridge that I'm almost out of and show you what they look like. I went a little lighter on the soy on these. I wanted a little bit more in this batch. I'm going to pull one out and give you a look. Pickle and spice. So you end up with a mahogany looking egg. I'm going to taste of this thing. And I'll show you the inside. Man, that's good. You can see how rich that yolk is from those farm fresh eggs. It's a whole lot darker than what you get out of the grocery store, and a whole lot fresher. Guys, try these pickled eggs. They are fantastic, especially with a cold beverage, if you know what I mean.
Alright y'all, it's been an hour since I put this in here to let it rise. And as you can see, it's got double. You want it to be double of what it was when you put it in there, and this is every bit of double. So then all you do, just deflate it down. Then I go around and just tuck it in. And flip it over. I'm going to take a little bit of flour. Not a lot, just enough to cover this. Now you have two options now. If you've got a big loaf pan, you can put it in there. But what I do is just take it and I take my bench scrape and I just kind of eyeball it because I'm going to make 2 loaves out of this. Part of the reason for that is if you've ever noticed how bad fresh baked bread will go versus how store-bought lasts forever. And it's because of all the chemicals and additives to it. So we won't eat this, we will eat about a loaf in a few days. And I will put the other one in the freezer. And this bread freezes really good, thaws great, and you can't even tell when you thaw it any different. Now I'm going to do is just roll this out. And this is not something that you have to be perfect with. You just kind of want a semi-rectangle here. And then you just take one end and just tightly roll it and tuck it. And then take your ends and just fold them under. And this is just 2 loaf pans, regular 9x5s that I've just lightly coated with some olive oil. So I do the same with both halves. And, you know, they don't have to be perfect. You can go through and you can weigh out your dough and divide it evenly. But like I said, I just kind of eyeball it. Alright, now that you've got them like that, you're going to let them rise for about another 50 minutes to an hour. So I'm going to put these on a sheet, cover them with the towel again, and let them rise for probably about 50 minutes. But you want them to double again in these pans. Alright y'all, the bread has had its second rise for about 50 minutes and you can see it's doubled again, and this is what you want to look for. You don't want to let it get so big that it's really capped out, because then what happens is when you put it in the oven, that rise is going to fall. So you don't want to over rise it. But what I'm going to do now, I've got the oven preheating to 400 and I've just got some melted butter, and I'm just going to brush the tops with melted butter. And there's no specific amount, just cover it good. And if you really need measurements, this was probably about 2 tablespoons. I may not use quite all of it, but
Okay.
alright, the oven is preheated to 400 and we're just going to pop them in there. But one quick thing, if Matthew will get down here and show, if you want a really good crust, put you a pan of water in there, and while your temperature is coming up on your stove, let it get heated up, and that just gives you that really good crust. I do the same thing for my buns as well. And we're just going to pop them in there and check them after 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. Usually after 20 minutes, 25, they're done. You just want a hollow sound when you tap on the top of them. So we're going to set the timer and check back in about 20 minutes. Alright y'all, it's been in there for about 23 minutes now, and looks done enough to me. Has the hollow sound that I like to hear. So we're going to go ahead and take it on out. And it has that good hollow sound. Alright. Alright, now that I've got them out on my cooling rack, I'm just going to cover them with a tea towel and let them sit there until they are completely cool. You can of course enjoy them now, but since we'll be using this for sandwich bread and I want to get good cuts, I'm just going to let them completely cool and then get them sliced up. Alright. The bread is cooled. I'm just going to get both these loaves sliced up. We'll put this one in our bread keeper, and then I'll wrap this one up and put it in the freezer. The tip to cutting a soft sandwich bread type loaf is with a really good bread knife. I highly recommend this Rada cutlery. They're American made. I've used them for years. They never break, they never wear out, and they give a really good cut. And that's what the inside looks like. And this tests my patience the most, because you have to let the bread knife do the work for you. Don't force it. Don't try to saw with it.
Alright guys, thanks for spending this little bit of time with us at the Piney Woods Homestead. As Lisa made her wonderful loaf bread, and I made some pickled eggs. Let us know in the comments what you think, and if you make these pickled eggs and this bread, what you think. I think it's a pretty good combo, pickled eggs and bread.
I'll stick with the bread. The pickled eggs aren't bad, but I'll stick with the bread.
I love them. I ate about 6 of them at the time. Guys, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and if you have, we appreciate you. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you on the next video.